You get dressed up, spend money you don't have, and stand in a loud, crowded bar just to unwind after a hard week. Finland skips all of that and unwinds at home in its underwear. You need a permit, a fence to climb, or a rental fee just to walk through a forest. In Finland, the forest already belongs to you. And right now, in a courtyard somewhere in Helsinki, in weather 15 degrees below freezing, a newborn baby is taking the best nap of its life. Today, we're counting down 13 Finnish habits that turn the daily frustrations most of the world has simply learned to live with into problems that are already solved, including the real reason Finnish babies nap outside in freezing cold and sleep better for it. Watch until the end, because number 13 is a single Finnish phrase that can shut down panic the moment something goes wrong and replace it with clear-headed action. Number 1. Kalsarikännit. Winding down after a stressful week has become an exhausting social performance in its own right. Dressing up, paying high prices at a crowded venue, and making small talk with strangers is supposed to be relaxing, but it often adds a second layer of stress on top of the first, draining energy and money under the guise of a night off. Finland removed that performance entirely by legitimizing Kalsarikännit, which translates roughly to peeling off the armor of the outside world, putting on your most comfortable clothes, and relaxing at home with zero intention of going out, replying to messages, or being productive. The Finnish Ministry for Foreign Affairs even gave it an official emoji. It isn't treated as a lazy failure or a lonely compromise. It's a respected, intentional ritual of decompression. Strip away the pressure to look presentable, spend money, or perform, and what's left is a low-cost, zero-demand reset that lets an overstimulated nervous system actually recover. Number 2. Everyman's rights. For most people on Earth, reconnecting with nature means navigating private property signs, fences, permits, and trespassing laws. The basic desire to walk through a forest, forage for wild food, or sleep under the stars has been fenced off and commodified, leaving millions with no simple way to reach the natural world around them. Finland dissolved that barrier through a legal framework called Jokamiehen oikeus, Everyman's Rights, embedded directly into Finnish law. It grants everyone the right to roam the countryside, hike, camp overnight, and forage for mushrooms and berries, even on privately owned land, as long as they don't damage property or disturb a home's privacy. Nature is treated as a shared utility rather than an exclusive luxury, and outdoor life stops being a planned, expensive event and becomes something you can just do on a random Tuesday for free. Number 3. Sauna and Ice Swimming. When winter hits, most of the world retreats indoors and treats physical discomfort, low energy, and seasonal gloom as unavoidable costs of the season. Finland engineered a direct physical countermeasure instead, built around the collision of intense heat and extreme cold. Sauna isn't a spa indulgence here. It's a basic home utility, with millions of them built into apartments, houses, and even office buildings. The ritual is simple. Heat the body to somewhere between 80 and 100 degrees Celsius, then immediately shock it with a plunge into an ice hole cut into a frozen lake, called an avanto, or a roll in the snow. That rapid swing forces the blood vessels to constrict and then flood back open, flushing the circulatory system and triggering a surge of endorphins that measurably lowers stress markers. The scale of it is hard to overstate. Finland has roughly 3.3 million saunas for a population of about 5.5 million people. More saunas than cars, according to Guinness World Records, which means the ritual isn't a special occasion, it's just Tuesday. Turn extreme weather into a physiological tool, and winter stops being something to endure. Number 4. Coffee breaks. Corporate culture tends to treat rest as an earned privilege rather than a basic need, which is how so many workplaces end up with people staring at screens for hours without a real pause. That sustained load wears down focus and accelerates burnout, and yet stepping away from the desk still feels, in a lot of offices, vaguely irresponsible. Finland closed that loophole by making the coffee break, kavatauko, a structural right rather than a personal favor. Finland already drinks more coffee per person than any other country on Earth, roughly 12 kilograms a year for every man, woman, and child, according to International Coffee Organization figures, and that habit is written into the country's labor protections. The Working Hours Act guarantees rest periods, and nearly every sector's collective agreement layers on top of it, securing paid coffee breaks of roughly 10 to 15 minutes, typically twice during the workday. Recovery isn't something you have to justify. It's scheduled. Number 5. Comfortable silence. In most cultures, a pause in conversation feels like a problem that needs fixing immediately. A few seconds of quiet, and people rush to fill it with small talk, filler words, anything to keep the interaction moving, which turns socializing into a performance rather than a connection. Finland simply normalized the opposite. Silence isn't read as awkwardness, anger, or disinterest. It's read as respect and as a sign that the people in the room are comfortable enough with each other not to perform. Finns feel no obligation to fill every gap, which means people can sit together, share space, and think without narrating every thought out loud. Remove the demand for constant verbal output, and a conversation stops being a chore and starts being rest. Number 6. Mökki Life. Modern technology has surrounded most of us with a constant stream of notifications and conveniences that were supposed to save time, but instead created a state of permanent digital half-attention, where real rest is never more than a click away from being interrupted. Finland counters that with Mökki Life, the near-universal habit of spending weekends and holidays at a countryside cottage. There are close to 500,000 registered cottages in Finland. And unlike a modern vacation rental, a real mökki often has no running water, no electricity, and no indoor plumbing on purpose. That absence of convenience does the work. Chopping wood, hauling water from the lake, and feeding a wood stove are manual, repetitive tasks that occupy the hands and quiet the mind, pulling attention completely off the grid without anyone having to enforce a digital detox. Number 7. Talkoot. Urban life tends to isolate people into separate units where neighbors rarely interact, and when a shared space needs work, people either wait on an underfunded local government or pay a contractor, which slowly erodes any sense of shared responsibility. Finland counters that with Talkoot, a tradition of organized, voluntary communal labor. When something needs doing, whether it's cleaning a shared courtyard, repairing a dock, or helping a neighbor raise a roof, the community shows up and does it together. Nobody gets paid. The reward is shared food, a communal sauna afterward, and a functioning sense of mutual reliance. Necessary labor becomes social glue instead of an obligation, and the loneliness that comes with modern city living has less room to take hold. Number 8. Sisu. When something goes badly wrong, the instinct for most people is to look for comfort, a shortcut, or a reason to give up, and resilience gets treated like a rare trait that only some people are born with. Finland built its national identity around a different idea, Sisu, a form of stubborn, quiet determination that researchers at Aalto University have spent years studying. Sisu isn't a burst of motivation or a moment of courage. It's the sustained, unglamorous execution of what needs to be done when the odds look bad and nobody is cheering. It's moving forward one step at a time, without narrating the struggle or waiting for validation. The word left the country in the winter of 1939, when roughly 300,000 poorly equipped Finnish soldiers held off a Soviet invasion force nearly 1.5 times their size. Foreign correspondents needed a word for how they were still standing, and Sisu was the word that traveled. Time magazine printed it in January of 1940, calling it a compound of bravado and bravery, of ferocity and tenacity, of the ability to keep fighting after most people would have quit. Treat hardship as a mechanical problem to be worked through rather than a reason to stop, and it stops being able to stop you. Number 9. Astiankuivauskaappi. Every day, people everywhere lose time and counter space to wash dishes, either hand-drying every plate with a towel or living with a bulky plastic rack that traps water and grows bacteria. It's treated as an unavoidable, minor tax on domestic life. In the mid-1940s, Finnish engineer Maiju Gebhard, working at the Finnish Work Efficiency Institute, decided it wasn't unavoidable at all. She calculated that a typical Finnish housewife spent tens of thousands of hours over a lifetime just drying dishes, and designed the Astiankuivauskaappi, a built-in dish-drying cabinet mounted directly above the sink, with open wire shelves instead of a solid bottom. Wet dishes go straight into the cabinet, water drains into the sink below, and everything dries out of sight behind closed doors. It's been standard in Finnish kitchens built after 1945 ever since, and it cut dish drying time by roughly half. Nearly 80 years later, new-build Finnish kitchens still include one as a default fixture, not a retrofit or a trend, one redesigned cabinet, one erased chore for every generation since. Number 10. The Maternity Package. In most of the world, preparing for a newborn means an expensive scramble. A crib, a wardrobe of clothes the baby will outgrow in weeks, bedding, bottles, all bought before the parents even know how their finances will hold up on the other side. That upfront cost falls hardest on the families who can least absorb it. And for most of history, that gap tracked closely with how many newborns survived their first year. Finland closed it with a state program dating back to 1937, formalized as a universal benefit for every expecting parent by 1949. Äitiys Package, the maternity package, better known as the baby box. Any parent who attends a prenatal health check receives it free, packed with clothing, bedding, and hygiene supplies sized for a baby's first year, all fitted inside a sturdy cardboard box that doubles as an actual crib, a detail added in 1942 for families with no room for one. The reform coincided with one of the steepest declines in infant mortality of the 20th century, from roughly 65 deaths per 1,000 births down to about 2. Though that drop is shared credit with decades of parallel advances in maternal healthcare. Nearly 90 years later, the box itself has become a keepsake, but its job hasn't changed. Every child in Finland starts life with the same set of supplies, regardless of what their parents can afford. Number 11. Outdoor stroller naps. Parents everywhere struggle with infant sleep, spending hours rocking babies in darkened rooms, worrying about stale indoor air, and feeling trapped inside through the winter months. In Finland, the fix runs in the opposite direction entirely. Babies nap outside, in their strollers, even in the depths of a sub-zero winter. Researchers at the University of Oulu found that the vast majority of Finnish families do this, often starting when a baby is just weeks old, in temperatures that can drop to -15 degrees Celsius, or lower once the infant is properly bundled in a thermal sleeping bag. And the outdoor naps aren't just tolerated, they're better. The same research found outdoor naps ran noticeably longer than indoor ones, with parents reporting more active, better-rested babies afterward. The cold isn't something to protect a baby from. Here, it's part of what helps them sleep. Number 12. No bad weather, only bad clothing. In most school systems, cold, rain, or gray skies are treated as a valid reason to cancel recess and keep children indoors, which trades physical development for a few hours of quiet and leaves kids restless, understimulated, and stuck in front of a screen. Finland's national early childhood guidelines go the other way. Children in Finnish daycare centers, päiväkoti, go outside every single day, and the weather has to fall below roughly -20 degrees Celsius before that changes. Everything short of that threshold, rain, sleet, wind, ordinary snow, is treated as just weather, addressed with clothing rather than avoided. The guiding phrase, taught to new parents and teachers alike, is ei ole huonoa säätä, on vain huonoa pukeutumista. There is no bad weather, only bad clothing. Staff layer children in waterproof, insulated outerwear, built for the conditions, rather than restructuring the day around them. The habit builds physical resilience and comfort with discomfort from the earliest age, and it starts the same cold tolerance training that shows up later in the sauna and the stroller nap, just applied to a 5-year-old on a playground instead of an infant or an adult. Number 13. Ei se mitään. When a plan falls apart or an unavoidable setback hits, the usual human response is to dwell on it, replay it, assign blame, spiral over something that's already outside anyone's control. That delay is where most of the damage happens. The Finnish phrase for cutting that cycle off is ei se mitään, which translates literally to "it's nothing." It's what a Finn says after a mistake, a failure, or bad news, not to pretend the problem doesn't exist, but to immediately downgrade it from a disaster to a fact and move on. It works because it's automatic. The moment it's said, the emotional weight of the setback gets set down, and whatever energy was about to go into panic or self-pity is free to go into the next useful step instead. It's a small phrase with an outsized job. It turns a bad moment into just a moment. If today's list changed how you think about a locked forest gate, a loud Friday night out, or your own child's nap schedule, Finland has plenty more of these quiet fixes. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.